Well, hello there. Welcome to Streets and Eats, the podcast where we want to inspire you and your next trip by telling you all about some fantastic destinations and, of course, all about the food to eat while you're there. On this episode of Streets and Eats, we're going to tell you about our very last international trip before the pandemic. We took this one to the Indonesian island of Java, and wow, what a trip it was.
This wasn't our first trip to Indonesia. We'd gone to a couple of different places before, Bali and...
We'd gone out to see the Komodo dragons on Komodo Island. We have been to Bali, which everybody goes to Bali, it seems like, which is beautiful. But this time we wanted to go to see the temples, and we wanted to see a little bit more of, I don't know, a different part of Indonesia, because with all their 7,000 islands or however many they have.
They're all different.
They're all different, and they all have their own personality.
And what we found about Java, one big difference is opposed to Bali and those areas, is there's not as much international tourism in Java.
No,
there's still a lot of tourism, but it's all domestic.
Yeah,
which
domestic.
I thought was very cool.
There were foreigners there too, but a much smaller amount,
right,
than you would normally expect, except at some of the very big sites, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, and we went in. It was our winter vacation. It's on the equator, so
it's hot.
It's always hot all year.
It's hot. And
it's more humid. A matter of when is it dry and when is it humid and when is it wet. So when is the best time to visit? Well, their winter, which is May through September, even though it is on the border or on the equator, it is actually south of the equator a little bit. And that makes a big difference. But May through September, it's not too hot. There's not too much rain. The humidity level's not too bad. July and August, of course, are the coolest and the driest months. However, I actually like the rain. Because it's going to be hot all the time. And when you get a nice cooling afternoon rain, it just makes things more pleasant.
Well, it feels like it sort of cools you off, and it like washes off your haze and your dustiness from all that humidity.
Yeah.
But we went during December, and we found that it may not be the best time to visit because we were there during their school holidays. And as we said, in Yogyakarta, which is the biggest city on the island, it was packed full of domestic travelers.
A lot of school trips.
Full. Yeah, school trips, lots of school trips. Because they don't celebrate Christmas, really. I mean, they did have Christmas decorations and stuff.
In some places, yeah.
But it's not, I mean, by religion, they don't celebrate Christmas. So it's just a fun time for everyone. And that's when the high schools take their trips, apparently.
It's their summer vacation, so...
Yeah.
They're all traveling. And that was probably a reason not to go in December if you have the option. There were a lot of crowds at a lot of the different places we're going to talk about.
And the midday temps were hot and humid, like without fail. In the afternoon, there was a little bit of rain, which, like we said, cooled it off. But boy, we went on our Jeep tour to Mount Merapi, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And we must have hit the worst torrential downfall.
It was crazy.
It was crazy, but you know what? It made our Jeep Safari that much more fun. I mean, we were in a 4x4, so It was just a blast.
Well, one other thing that I thought was interesting, kind of tying the summer vacation idea and the domestic travel, because there's not a lot of international tourists in the area, we were kind of like celebrity status
we were
in a lot of these places.
Yeah.
Because most of the tourism that we did encounter was high school kids on a trip, and
they all want to practice their English.
Yeah, they all want to practice their English. They all are very curious about, of course, everywhere else in the world, and so they want to hear your stories and why are you there? They know why they're there. So that was kind of interesting.
And Jim and I always loved traveling during our Christmas break, especially to countries that were not primarily Christian, because we weren't there to do Christmas. We do Christmas with our family, like most people.
Right.
But since we weren't with our family, we would go travel to something that we didn't have to worry about
closures.
Closures. We didn't have to worry about running into big events. It would just, I mean, there was always New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve is big around the world, no matter
Everywhere.
where you are. But for the most part, it was a good time to go. Everything was open, and we didn't have to deal with the holiday bits, which I don't mean to sound we don't like holidays. We love holidays. But for travel, it was just really, really good. And it was also low season in most places.
Yeah.
So we weren't paying as much. So we really love traveling during our
It's a good time
Christmas
of year to
breaks.
go.
We did get a Christmas present from this trip, as a matter of fact. We
We
got
did.
COVID while we were there.
That's right.
We don't know when, we don't know how. It wasn't even a thing when we got it, but it was what it was. And we talked about having COVID a little bit earlier in one of our podcasts, but I'm here to tell you, we did get a
It
Christmas
was
present.
no fun. I guess the only good about it was that we didn't actually get sick until after we got back.
Yeah, we got
So we didn't have to deal with being sick on vacation. That's always a bummer.
for sure. So anyway, the first place we went was, like I said, the largest city called Yogyakarta. And I just love the name of the city.
Yeah.
It's just such a cool place because it's spelled Yogyakarta, but everywhere you look, it's spelled with a J-O.
J-O-G-J.
Yeah, and they call it yoga. It's just really cool. I don't know. I love it. And one
But
of the
it's-
places that was really cool that was the letters. You know, I love that because I'm not because I'm really that into Instagram, but you know how they have all those Instagram letters spelling out the city?
Right.
They're always good photo ops.
Right.
And these were yellow and red, and it was just so pretty, and all the people around it. I loved it.
Yeah. So Yogyakarta is a great base of operations. You can get direct flights from a few different international locations. Of course, Malaysia Air.
It was Asia Air. It's a cheap airline.
Of course, Asia Air, the cheap airline, flies direct, KL, into Yogya. And then it's a simple taxi ride, tuk-tuk ride, motorcycle ride if you're alone.
And if you want to go further than we went, we didn't wander that far from Yogya because everything we wanted to see was in the area within like 40 kilometers. But if we wanted to, we could have either rented a car, and they have great train service there as well.
They do. But getting around using Uber or one of the local apps for share rides was perfect and
It
cheap.
was super cheap. There was no bartering. There was no wondering how much you were going to pay because it told you before they got there. We even rented them for the whole day for something like $25. It was the way to do it. We got sort of spoiled because,
That
of
was a
course,
good way
when
to
you
do
do
it.
that, they have air conditioning in their car. And
Yeah.
it was a nice respite from being outside.
So Yogyakarta is it's a very populated city, but I would say size-wise, it's not very big.
It's rather compact.
It's very compact. You can get around easily, tuk-tuk, motorbike, if you want to ride on the back of a motorbike, or like we said, using a share ride app will get you pretty much anywhere.
Oh, well, one time we took a horse cart,
Well, yeah,
but that was for
for a
kind of-
tour.
I mean, we took it because, that's what everybody was doing, and it was kind of like a tour, but really you just went down Malioboro, which is the main street, down the shopping street, and that's where all the activity was during the time that we were there. There was tons of people out the whole time, and these horse carts, they wanted to make a buck. And everybody was taking them, and it was so festive. And the people in the next cart over would take a picture of you, and you take a picture
Yeah.
of them, and everybody be waving, and it was just so.
Very festive.
It was very festive. It felt like you were being really welcomed into the city.
Yeah,
So it
the
was
horse
a new
cart
thing.
was actually the quickest way to get up and down
Malioboro.
Malioboro.
Walking, there was just so
Walking
many
was
people.
so crowded. And you couldn't drive it, of course.
No, well, actually, they may have even. I
There
don't
were
think
cars on it, but oh my.
Yeah.
That traffic didn't move. But the horses had their own lane, and it was great. It was a good way to get around. But there's a lot to do in Yogyakarta. You can easily fill up
a couple of days.
2 or 3 days before you go out and start doing day trips out. But that's really what you're going to do there is some day trips. But spend those couple of days. You're going to want to go to the Sultan's Palace. We had a great time at Sultan's Palace. That's where we really ran into a lot of different school groups. And they were so excited that we were teachers and we were traveling. They loved
The
it.
reason they go there is because it really is where the Sultan lives. And it's a complex for Javanese culture. It is the main place that every Javanese person needs to go. So they do, apparently, in the winter.
Yeah. We missed the timing on it. We didn't get a chance to see any of the dances or anything like that. But it's still a great place just to go and get an idea of the country.
And it was a great museum, too, with lots of artifacts, historical artifacts, costumes from the different eras. And, yeah.
Carriages. Yeah, everything.
But the one place I like better than the Sultan's Palace, just for pure beauty, was called Taman Sari. And that was a water palace. Basically, what it was a palace that was part of the Sultanate and had a former... had one of the royal gardens in it, but it was carved out of like a almost, I don't know what kind of material it was. It looked sort of like a sandstone, I think.
Maybe tufa.
Maybe.
Like the volcanic stone.
But it was white.
Yeah.
And it was so pretty. There was carvings everywhere.
Intricate, ornate.
Very
carvings.
ornate. And
water lilies in the pools.
And you kind of walk down through a bunch of these little openings and tunnels, and then you come into this area that it's all water around it, and it is the Instagram capital of Java, I'm sure, because that's what everybody was doing while we were there. You would have thought that they were full-on models as much as they were taking advantage of the surroundings, but it was gorgeous. I loved it.
Taman Sari was probably my favorite place in Yogyakarta too. We talked a little bit about walking down Jalan Malioboro.
Well, that's where you go to eat. That's where you go to shop. That's where you go to have coffee. That's where you go to hang out.
See your friends, hang out.
Yeah, try the different pastries. When we were coming in from the airport on the bus, was it a bus or a train?
We took the bus in.
Yeah. I sat next to a girl, and she was more than happy to tell me some of the things I should do. And one of the things she told me to do was to eat the lumpia at a special little cart on Malioboro. And so, I mean, if you tell me where to go for the best food, you know I am going to go there. We went there on the very first day, and the lady said it would take 2 hours.
To wait for the lumpia.
I'm not
well, you
waiting.
know it's cooked fresh for you.
Yeah. And the line was huge, but I wasn't waiting 2 hours for lumpia, so we decided to come back the next day, and we only waited 45 minutes. And that's much different.
We planned our timing a little bit better on that one, and it was worth the 45-minute wait. Like we said, we found a place to sit on the road and just watch the parade go by. I mean, I call it a parade, but really it was all people from all walks of life, tourists, of course, and just locals doing their shopping.
Westerners, though.
No.
Not very
doing
many
their
Westerners.
shopping, eating the street food. It's just a fascinating 45 minutes of sitting there.
We did go into one of the malls along Malioboro because you had to go in and out the whole time. Otherwise, you just were going to melt. It was so hot.
The air conditioning was welcome respite.
And we went into one, and they were having a Christmas show. And so basically their Christmas show was they'd have a comedian get up and do a little thing, and then they'd have a vendor from the mall do a raffle, and then they'd play a game. I mean, it was cute. We have those things in our malls too, but it was nothing like what we would have in our malls at the same time. So that was kind of a cultural experience that we just sort of happened upon. That was a little fun.
It was good. And that's also where we found the ATMs. So that's a good place to reload your cash if you need to. That's a good tip for malls, I think.
Well, and for bathrooms, when you're in places where you're not sure where to go, the best place to go is to find a hotel.
Right.
That's where we always go.
It's either a Novotel or an Ibis. It
was an Ibis.
From that chain. Right downtown. They had Santa Claus in the front greeting everybody coming in. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, he was skinny.
He was very skinny. He scared more kids than he made happy, I guess.
Yeah. But they have, they always have bathrooms right past the the check-in desk, and they're not going to ask you if you are checked in there. It doesn't matter where you go. Just find the hotels. You'll always find a good Western bathroom.
Yeah. And then the night market, really, the whole place comes to life after dark, all up and down Jalan Malioboro. More shopping, more stalls with food, and it's just almost like a huge party.
You know, we didn't really go to a restaurant, did we? I don't think we went to a restaurant.
No, we ate
the
pretty
whole
much
time we were in
the street food the whole
Yogyakarta.
time.
We ate street food the whole time just because it was so plentiful. It looked so delicious. And as we said, I mean, they were definitely turning it over, so you could tell that it was fresh. You never go to the street stall that, doesn't have a line. You want to wait in line a good 10 minutes. Make sure that what you're eating is the freshest. That
Make
they
sure
just
they're
put
cooking
it,
it
on the grill.
right then. That's a good thing about street food. You can see what's happening, so you can make that informed decision.
So you could have satay and chicken wings, and it was really good stuff. I couldn't even tell you everything we ate because we basically walked, got something to eat, walked a little
If
more.
it looked good, we tried it.
We tried it. That's right. It was a lot of fun. We did take a cooking lesson while we were in Yogyakarta as well. We've started this new thing. Well, we started it a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we found that, and we'll talk a lot about this during our podcast, I'm sure, but we found that when we take cooking lessons, we learn so much about the people. When you take a tour, a sightseeing tour, they tell you the history, they tell you some good stories.
But you don't get that really intimate connection with the person leading the tour.
Well, not just that, but you certainly don't get an intimate connection. That's right. And usually with a cooking tour, you have that person to yourself for a good 3 hours or so in their kitchen. But on top of that, you don't get to find out how they grew up or where they went to school or,
how they learned to cook. What did their mom used to cook them? What their grandmother used to cook them?
And so we just found that that's a really good way to start to get to know the culture a little bit more. We've had varying degrees of success depending on if that's something that they really do in that country or not. I would say Yogyakarta is just, or the Javanese, it's just coming into maybe thinking about doing cooking lessons. But we did take one, and we end up having to take our Uber out to this little house in a neighborhood that was, I would say, quite a ways from the center of town.
Outskirts, yeah.
Maybe
it was still in town, but it was on the outskirts.
Like 10K or something away.
Not that far.
Not that far.
Everything seemed far because of the traffic. It took some time to get around, for sure.
But we got there and we got out of the car. We weren't, of course, not even sure that we're in the right place.
Well, it was just somebody's house, which is the way we like it.
It is exactly the way we like it. And, of course, the lady was waiting for us, and she comes running out. Her name was Mimi.
Yeah.
And her niece was there, too.
That's right.
And her niece spoke very good English. And actually, Mimi spoke very good English as well. I don't know. But, they always worry about that.
She was worried, so she asked her niece to come.
Yeah, they always try and find someone.
Which was kind of cool because her niece was a college student. So we, aside from just getting an insight into daily life in Mimi's house, we also got some insight into what it's like for a college student.
For younger kids.
Yeah.
So Devin was with us, and it was just Jim and Devin and I. And so the three of us, we went in there, and one of our main goals was to make sambal. When we lived in the Netherlands, we used to have sambal all the time because nasi goreng and nasi lemak is such a very popular thing to eat in the Netherlands. So they had to have sambal to eat to go with it because that's what you do.
Really strong Indonesian influence for the Asian food in Holland.
From the Dutch
East Indies Company.
Yeah. And basically, sambal is a pepper paste.
Sure.
Very spicy. And so it's not hard to make. You basically put a lot of peppers together, and then you smush them with a...
Pepper, garlic, onion.
Mortar and pestle.
And smash it all together with the mortar and pestle.
And you put it on literally everything, from fried chicken to gudeng to everything. Bread, yeah, everything.
Just scoop it up and eat it.
And it is so delicious. And of course, the fresher the better, of course.
Well, and this was super fresh. We went to the market with her.
That's right. First we went to the market.
Didn't really do a market tour, but she took us around to the different stalls and talked about a lot of the different produce that they have and where it comes from. And that was a lot of fun in and of itself, too.
We would go to the markets no matter what, as you know.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it's always kind of nice to go with someone who knows what the produce is.
Yeah.
So we made sambal with her. We made fried chicken, and we made gudeg. Gudeg is the dish of Yogyakarta, and it is a fried,
Stewed
stewed jackfruit,
jackfruit.
that's got spices in it, and it is super
It was
popular
delicious.
there. They loved it, and we sat down. We made all these things, and of course we had a little feast. And I would say we were there almost 4 hours.
Yeah, it was a good time.
And we just talked and had a great time. It was
Cooked and
definitely
talked.
one of the highlights of the trip. And I highly suggest that not only do you do cooking lessons, but you try and find ones where you are not in a cooking school. We've done those and they're fun as well. But we find the ones in people's homes to be
Are the best.
much more intimate.
We did
much
one
more
in
interesting.
hotels often offer them too. But those tend to be more of a make your own lunch type thing. And you don't really get an opportunity to
Ask any questions.
have conversation. So yeah, in someone's home, in their kitchen is the way to go. And that's what we did.
So after we had our fill of Yogyakarta, we were based there to begin with, and then we decided that we wanted to go out and see the temples of Borobudur and Prambanan. And so instead of, which you could easily do, they're
You
not
can
that
do
they're not
a day
that
trip.
far at all from Yogyakarta. But we decided to go ahead and stay in a different hotel and get a little bit of a different outlook, because they're out in the countryside in smaller cities. We knew it wasn't going to be anything like the big town.
right.
So we got a different hotel. In this little hotel, we were in a cabin, and they had a pool, which we didn't have at our other hotel.
Yeah.
And the restaurant was, of course, right there beside the pool, and you ate right there because there isn't really a whole lot of restaurants. There were more night markets, again, near the temples, but you had to have transportation, and we were kind of in the middle of some rice fields.
Yeah. We were a little bit kind of remote, but well situated to visit Borobudur. And yeah, we could have arranged for transportation to go into the village and eat at the night market, but the food at the
Place was fine.
at the hotel was local food from local produce.
And this way we got to go swimming and cool off at
Yeah.
at the end of the day, which was nice.
Well, and there was one time when we were swimming, this kind of cracked everybody up. It was so hot.
So hot.
That
I mean, we can't even tell
You
you.
want to be in the water, but you don't want to be in the sun. So
and it's not covered, of course.
and it's not a covered pool. So we ended up with our umbrellas,
Shading us as
Shading
we're
us,
swimming in the pool.
swimming in the pool, just kind of sitting in the pool. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
But we did get some strange looks from some of the other
But you know
visitors.
what? Just like any time you come up with something new, there were other people that tried it after us.
That's right.
Because that sun was
I
beating
think we
down.
started something.
From now on, if you ever see someone with an umbrella in the pool, just want you to know we started that first.
That's right. Give us credit. But we really wanted to stay there because visiting Borobudur, this 7th century Buddhist temple that had been largely forgotten and overgrown for
Years and
hundreds
years
of
and
years.
Yeah. It's like 1,200 years old.
It's an incredible temple. And we wanted to be able to be there for a sunrise.
Sunrise, which is a very popular thing to do. And if we saw tourists anywhere, that's where we saw them.
Yes.
Hundreds of them. Maybe not thousands, but hundreds.
Well, the sunrise was kind of nice. We've done other sunrise things too, and it just doesn't always pan out because you never really know if you're going to have a sunrise. But we did at Borobudur. It was a beautiful sunrise.
All kinds of different colors. It went through the whole gamut.
We got there early enough.
Well, what happened is, most of the times you have to do it by tour. In fact, the gates are really not open. They say the gates open at 6, so that's why we didn't take a tour. And all we did was we told the hotel we wanted to book transportation to Borobudur first thing in the morning. And they said, okay, no problem. They do this all the time. So they didn't say anything about a tour either. But once you got to the gates, it seemed like everybody had to have a
Everybody
tour.
else was on a tour.
And they even gave us a sticker that said we were on a tour, even
Yeah.
though we never paid for a tour.
Who knows? Maybe the hotel when they set it up,
it's considered a tour.
The only way to do it is a tour, so that's what they booked us. But they told us it was just the entrance.
Yeah,
But it worked out, and we
didn't want anything more than that. Anyway.
We got the entrance before sunrise, and we had a chance to explore the temple a little bit as the sun was coming up. And like you said, once sunrise happened and the sun poked its head over the horizon, there was plenty of people not climbing still, but sitting all around the temple. And it was still kind of cool, even with so many people, because everybody's quiet, it's hushed, and they're just waiting for the sunrise. And there's maybe some birds off in the distance making some noise.
And it was really cool because, like we said, it's hot and humid, but in the middle of the night, it did cool down a little bit, which was nice. And there was like a little misty fog.
Yeah.
So you had the misty fog in the forest, and then you had the golden sunrise. It turned into like purples, and I couldn't believe all the different colors that we saw as the sun was rising. And it took quite more time than you expect too, half an hour, 45 minutes, what have you. And then you have the rest of the day to go around the temple.
Yeah, you can stay as long as you want.
You can stay as long as
you want.
As long
as you can handle the heat.
And there's plenty to see at the temple. There's something like almost 3,000 reliefs which tell stories. There's something like 260 stupas that have bodhisattvas, is that what they're called? On the inside in different positions. So you could, I must have taken 1,000 photos. Yeah. I mean, it was just a stunning
And there were quite a
place.
few people there. However, after sunrise, it kind of started to thin out a little bit.
Pretty much right away,
And there was a period of time after the sunrise, people started leaving before the regular day visitors were coming, to where it really wasn't too bad crowded-wise. I was able to wait in a couple of spots where I wanted to get a photo for a nice gap in the humanity and actually get the photos. So that was nice.
But the temple itself is a round temple. Like Jim said, it was mostly overgrown. And it's withstood so many national disasters.
Volcanoes, earthquakes.
All kinds of stuff. In fact, in 2006, there was a 6.2 earthquake right in that area. And even though there's nothing holding the rocks together, it's just a sort of, what do you call that? Where you have the pin and that you sort of puzzle them together.
Yeah.
What do you call that?
There's a word for it.
There is a word for it. But
where the rocks are all fitted.
They're fitted
the stones,
together.
I should say.
And it lasted through that earthquake as it had for many years prior to that as well. It's such a really cool place, and I had been wanting to get to that place for so long.
It's been on our list for a while.
We weren't disappointed. In fact, just the opposite. We were so thrilled to finally get there.
That was a great visit. It is crowded though, like 2 million visitors each year.
But again, a lot of those are domestic, really, and I think sunrise is the way to go.
Yeah,
it really shows you how pretty it is. Okay, so we went there after we were done with the temple. You walk out of the grounds, and there's plenty of beautiful flowers and gardens to see.
Gardens
and things
are beautiful.
Like that. But then we basically went back and we were in the pool and stuff like that. So that worked out really nice.
There are other temples around that area that you could go explore. They take some trekking to get to. We didn't have the time for that. So, yeah.
Well, what we did do was the next day we were going to go to Prambanan, which is a little bit further away. And then from Prambanan, after we did that, we were going to go back to Yogyakarta. So we were only 2 days out of the city. Well, we ended up being 3 days out of the city.
Yeah.
But Prambanan, as opposed to being a Buddhist temple, is more of a Hindu temple. And it was built somewhere around the 8th century. And it is completely different. Completely 100% different than Borobudur. You have to do both.
Yeah.
You have to.
It's not the case where you've seen one temple, you've seen them all.
Right.
The architecture, the art is completely different.
And the people were different.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, there were some tourists there, but not... Well, when I say tourists, there were some Westerners there.
There were more Westerners at Prambanan than...
No, at Borobudur.
At Borobudur, right.
far more, like by
Then at
times
Prambanan.
10. Yeah, at Prambanan they were mostly domestic, and they were Hindus, and they were there doing pilgrimages and stuff. So it was a completely different crowd. The people were so sweet and so friendly, but you pretty much had to wait in a little bit of a line going into every single one of the temples.
To climb the steps.
Go in and look around and see which god was in that temple. But they were so pretty, and the lighting again was gorgeous throughout the whole day. We did have a little bit of rain, so it was kind of a cloudy day. I kind of like those days because you get a little bit of cloudiness, and then sometimes you get the sun peeking through, and then towards the end of the day,
you get some rain, and it clears up the sky sometimes really beautifully, which is what happened that night.
Yeah, it was just it really had a lot of different sort of backgrounds to our pictures and stuff, which was really nice.
So there used to be 240 different temples in the complex, but a lot of them have been looted. Some just crumbled. They didn't withstand those earthquakes. But there are still quite a few.
And they were small. They weren't the big ones.
And they're just kind of left in whatever position they ended up in. But the larger ones are still standing, and you can visit inside of those. But really, it's got a cool legend for this temple.
Yeah, I think, a lot of things, anytime there's a legend attached to it, it makes it that much better. And this one is of a princess, of course, whose father wanted to get her married off. And he did the traditional, he's going to have a contest, and whoever wins gets her hand and gets to marry her. Well, she was like, I don't like this guy. She wasn't real thrilled with anybody. She didn't really want to get married. She was a woman beyond her time, I guess. And she says, I have a caveat. I have my own detail that you have to take care of. As you are the winner and you are so strong, you should be able to build me this beautiful temple overnight. She wanted it to be 1,000 temples, and it had to be done in one night. And that was supposedly the history of Prambanan.
Why there's so many temples there. Right. So the warrior who was going to win her hand said, I can do this. He apparently was in cahoots with some spirits.
You know how they are, those spirits.
And he summoned them to come help him after the sunset. And they started working, and they built 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. But the night was getting late. Morning was coming. Well, the princess, of course, didn't really want to marry this guy.
So he didn't quite make it. He only got to 999.
Because she tricked him. She convinced the chickens to crow early. So they crowed early, and the spirits had to leave. The night was over.
Yeah, they can't be there today.
But they had only built 999 temples.
So she turned him to a statue, and who knows when she finally got married, but it wasn't that day.
Yeah.
I like it. It's like,
We spent a good couple hours at Prambanan.
We did.
There's quite a bit to do there. There's also a huge market outside. It's actually not even outside the grounds. It's as you are heading towards the exits. It's like your usual gauntlet that you have to get through, except there's nothing usual about it. It's a full-on market. Food stalls, souvenirs, but more like for locals, I think.
Well, it seemed like they were having a festival while we were there. So there was lots of flags, and it was really pretty. And one of the parts of the festival that was really cool is they had made all these statues and even sculptures out of rice straw.
Yeah, that's right.
They had those
sculptures.
wings where everybody stands in front, and so you have wings. Yeah. They had that. They had a big monkey god where you would climb up. They would take a crane and they would put you up in the monkey's arms and take a picture of you there.
Kind of like King Kong.
Yeah. They had, I can't remember all of them, but they were very intricate and they were very cool. And that was fun to walk around them.
I really enjoyed that part too.
They had a little Ferris wheel area. They had lots
some small
to do.
rides.
Yeah, they had some things to do, and it was just really fun. And like I said, everybody was in a festive mood on top of it. So That was great. We get back to the hotel, and we found out that they have a ballet there every night, a show. So we immediately signed up for the show. We pretty much like to do those. We know they're touristy, and we know they're sort of kitsch in a way, and not everybody's into them. But I got to tell you, I mean, there's no way that you're going to see this stuff otherwise.
Yeah.
So we go ahead and we pretty much do it. They're never that expensive. And this one was a Ramayana ballet, and it was cheap. I mean, I think it cost
very
us
affordable.
$15 or something each. And when we got there was only one other Western family. So it was for the locals. I felt kind of, good about that because it wasn't being taken. That's what they were there.
They weren't putting it on for us.
No.
They were putting it on for their culture.
Yeah. And it was a cute little theater. And the Ramayana ballet was, I thought, fascinating.
It was gripping.
It was gripping. But what was kind of cool about it is the local performers were aged somewhere between 5 and, of course, 35 or 40, who knows,
Right.
The upwards. But the little kids were out there and they were dancing. They had their part to do. It was great.
Yeah.
And the costumes were amazing. And it wasn't even that hot, which is always good.
No, it was really good.
So we really enjoyed that.
And what I really liked about it, besides the ballet part, was when we booked it with our hotel, we said
that's
we're going to need a way to get to the ballet area
And back.
And
they're like,
they
no
said,
problem.
So what they ended up doing was getting 3 guys on motorbikes.
On their motorbikes to take the 3 of us.
And we sat on the back of the motorbikes and zipped across town to the ballet theater.
And usually, I mean,
was a very
there's
cool
usually
ride.
4 of us traveling. Sometimes only the 2 of us. We do a lot of travel on
This
our
time
own
there's the
without
3
the
of
kids.
us.
But this time there's 3. So we almost never do the motorbike taxi because
Right.
it's
There's
just
too many
too
of us.
hard. There's too many of us. So it was kind of funny that this is the way that they were going to get us there and get us back. And we did it both ways, and it was fun. And
Yeah.
I thought it was well worth it, actually. It was
very
kind of
cool.
cool. Well, so then we go back to Yogyakarta. And as we're back, we're like, we almost have like this whole day. What are we going to do? And we had read about these Merapi Jeep tours. Merapi is a mountain.
It's the active volcano that's kind of above Yogyakarta.
It's north of Yogyakarta, and it's the highest mountain in Java.
Yeah.
It's very sacred, very religious.
And it's active. It had erupted in 2010.
Yeah. A deathly eruption. It had something like only 270 people died, but there's not that many people who live there.
But it wiped out a town, or village, I should say.
Yeah, which because they take you through the whole thing.
That's part of the tour.
But anyway, so we decided we were going to go. Well, then you have to figure out the logistics, right? So we're like, I had read that you don't have to take a tour. I'm kind of big on trying to do things on my own if I can figure it out.
Right.
So we hired the same Uber guy that we had, and he was so happy to see us, and we had him for the whole day, and that was kind of fun. He was such a nice guy. He even bought us lunch. Remember that?
Yeah.
He bought us lunch is a
Snack.
stretch. It was more like a snack, but I mean, it was just so cool. So, and then the next day we end up hiring him again for this whole day, and it was just by accident. It wasn't by design at all. Anyway, so he gets us there. Again, it's about 30 kilometers from Yogyakarta. And then when you get there, there's just a place where all the Jeeps go out of in this one, station, I guess you call it.
Central garage. Yeah.
A garage. And people just sit there and wait till it's their turn for their Jeep to go out. And we were the only foreigners at
That's
this.
right. It was a very busy thing.
It was we ended up waiting, I'd say 45 minutes.
Maybe an hour.
And they had coffee there, and they had little snacks if you wanted to buy snacks. But in a place to sit. So it was very comfortable.
But
and it was great people watching.
And we didn't have to set up anything beforehand. We just drove up. I walked into the office and said, we got 3 of us. We want to take a Jeep tour. We ended up getting lucky. We didn't really get a chance to choose our Jeep. But if you get the chance, make sure you get a Jeep that has a cover on it.
Yeah.
A roof, not a roof like a hard roof, but a removable roof, or in our case, it was a canvas roof that could be rolled up and over. So we had the roof
it wasn't
down
on,
when
of
we
course.
started. But then I think you had mentioned earlier, one of the worst rainfalls
of our whole trip.
And I think even for them in years, just came down on us during the trip. And after the first couple of drops fell, this huge, fat
you
summer
know those,
drops
yeah.
that like one drop hits the windshield and covers half of it.
It goes splat. And then it's
And
all
the driver
mud.
said, we're going to stop for a minute and I'm going to put the top up, which kind of restricts the view.
But
really,
we
you're
wanted
there.
the top up.
You're really there to be in a Jeep and going over these four-wheel drive roads. And like you said, they take you to one old village that was wiped out by the volcano.
They have a museum. They call it
There's
a museum now.
there. And then there's another place where you go through a bunker. But mostly you're driving around on this volcano down into a riverbed. And so the view is great, but it's not really the full experience. So having the roof up wasn't a big deal. And when the rain started falling, it was a lifesaver. We saw, so many other Jeeps.
They were just getting
They had
soaked.
Trash cans that they just cut open the top.
Not
and,
cans,
trash bags that they'd cut open the tops and were wearing those to try and keep dry. But you couldn't keep dry in that. No way.
There's no way. But they were having a good time because we're four-wheeling. We're up on this mountain. We stop at the many little sites that are on Mount Merapi, which basically was some really weird bunker, some very strange little alien rock thing that was like, you were supposed to be able to see a face in it. And plus it was like not supposed to be rock that was from that area. Plus they had the museum, which was sobering and dusty and kind of gut-wrenching to think that was a house where people just recently had lived. Like he said, the eruption was in 2010, so not that long ago. And just a bunch of really weird sights. But the whole time, as Jim said, you're on these four-wheel drive roads, you're stopping. Everybody, again, is just having a good old time. I mean, that's what you're out there to do, is have a good old time. And after you come down off the mountain, they take you into the river, and you do
into the riverbeds.
Into the river.
Yeah.
And you're splashing around, just driving and doing 360s, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good choice to have as our sort of farewell to Java. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Java was one of our favorite places in Indonesia. We highly recommend it. Fly into Yogyakarta, make that your base of operations. Get out to Borobudur, get out to Prambanan. Definitely take the Jeep tour on Merapi.
For a strange experience.
And if you can, book a cooking lesson and just enjoy all the food.
And the people. The people were fantastic. And, we've had that in all of Indonesia. So if you want to go to Bali, we loved Bali too. And we especially loved going out to Komodo Island and Rinca Island and taking the boat. For that one, we basically took a boat for 3 days. And we were the only people on the boat. It was kind of weird.
It was a great trip too.
It was great. Indonesia is a fantastic destination. We highly, highly, highly recommend it. Thanks for joining us on Streets at Ease. We hope that we've encouraged you to think about what travel you want to do in the future and do everything to savor the adventure. Make sure that you hit subscribe and tell your friends. And hey, thanks for listening.
Leave us a 5-star review.
Ciao for now.